5 men, one ordinary night, and a road that should have never been taken. Why would anyone leave a perfectly working car and walk into a freezing mountain? And more importantly, why didn't they come back? This is no clear answer. A place for real stories with no clear explanations. Today, we're diving into a case from 1,978 inches, the United States, that still remains unsolved. The Yuba County Five. On the night of the 24th of February, 1978, 5 friends set out to watch a college basketball game in California. Jack Madruga, Bill Sterling, Jack Hewitt, Gary Mathias, and Ted Weyer. All of them had mild intellectual disabilities, but they lived independently, followed routines, and relied heavily on structure. In fact, they had an important basketball tournament the very next day. They were excited, prepared, focused. Staying out late or taking risks, that wasn't who they were. The match was over. Everything was fine. They stopped at a market to buy snacks and headed home. Everything seemed normal so far. Nothing foreshadowed what was to come. Because that night, they would never make it home. Days pass. Families grow worried. Search efforts begin. And then, the first major clue is discovered. Their car. But the location makes no sense. The vehicle is found abandoned on a remote mountain road, deep in a snowy area. This wasn't just a wrong turn. It was completely off their route, miles away from where they should have been. And even stranger, the condition of the car. The doors are unlocked. The keys are still there. There is gas in the tank. The car is fully operational. In fact, investigators later determined that the car could have easily been driven out with minimal effort. So there's one undeniable fact. Nothing physically forced them to leave the car. And yet, they did. They stepped out into the freezing darkness and walked into the mountains. Why? Search teams struggle for weeks due to harsh winter conditions. Snow reaches several feet deep in some areas. Many locations are completely inaccessible. As time passes, hope begins to fade. And what started as a missing persons case slowly turns into something far more unsettling. Months later, when the snow finally melts, a group of motorcyclists stumbles upon a Forest Service trailer hidden deep in the mountains. Inside, they find the body of Ted Weyer. But the real mystery begins here. Ted didn't die from the cold. He died from starvation. And that alone is disturbing. But what's inside the trailer makes it even worse. There was enough food to keep someone alive for weeks. There were blankets. There was a working heating system. Everything needed to survive was right there, but none of it had been properly used. The food remained mostly unopened. The heater had not been activated. It's as if someone was there, but didn't or couldn't do the things necessary to stay alive. Medical reports suggest Ted survived for several weeks inside that trailer. This wasn't an instant death. It was slow, prolonged, and possibly preventable. So why didn't he eat? Why didn't he use the heat? Why didn't he try to leave? There are no clear answers. As the area is searched further, the remains of the other men are found along the path leading toward the trailer. Jack Madruga, Bill Sterling, and Jack Hewitt, all dead from hypothermia. It appears they tried to reach the shelter, but never made it. And then, there's one more detail. One of them is still missing. Gary Mathias. His body is never found. No trace, no remains, no confirmed evidence of what happened to him. It's as if he vanished completely. At this point, the case shifts from tragic to deeply unsettling. So, what really happened? Some believe they simply got lost, but that doesn't explain why they drove so far off course in the first place. Others suggest that Gary Mathias, who had a history of psychiatric issues, may have experienced a breakdown and somehow influenced the others. But even then, why would all of them follow him into such dangerous conditions? There were also reports from witnesses who claimed they saw strange lights or vehicles in the area that night, which raises another possibility. Were they running from something? Or from someone? And perhaps the most disturbing theory of all, what made them leave the car wasn't something logical. And that's why we can't understand it. 5 men left home that night with a plan. Everything was normal. Everything was controlled. But one unexplained decision led them into a chain of events that ended in confusion, isolation, and death. Why did they abandon the car? Why didn't they survive in the trailer? And what really happened to Gary Mathias? Even today, none of these questions have a clear answer, because some stories aren't meant to be solved, and some truths remain out there. Some questions never find an answer. This was one of them. Like and subscribe. Goodbye.